Welcome, everybody. It's Thursday night, and I brought a friend with me. It's a flawed man of God. My name's Stuart Davis. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor, not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. Not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm trying to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, give you some insight in case you are new to Christianity or interested or curious about Christianity from somebody like myself who is a lifelong Christian, non denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination, just in the word every day. So if you're curious, if you want to know more, ask questions, be part of the chat. It's a great group of guys and maybe a gal here and there. We don't know. It's the internet. If you are a Christian already and you just like Christian discussion, listening to it and being a part of it, again, we've got the chat right here. It's already active because everybody's excited about the return of my man, Eric Rolon. Woo!
Oh, it is good to be back. I've actually got my alarm set for 6 a.m. tomorrow so I can get up and have a couple hours before the little guy actually wakes up so I can get some writing done of my own.
Excellent.
Because there are some rumblings, there's some peals of thunder, and we are getting back in the saddle 100%.
Yeah. But you've been, and from what I understand, so, without getting too into detail, you have changed locations from the hustle and bustle of a metropolis in Texas
Yes.
to the bucolic country landscapes of um,
Upstate New York.
upstate New York, which
Yeah,
is not
it's
to be confused with the rolling metropolis of New York City.
yeah, not New York, New York. We're in the Thousand Island region, so it's right on the border of the United States and Canada. So we get a lot of Canadian visitors on the weekends. At the Harbor Freight location that I work at, they come in droves on Saturday, Sunday, and they always fill up a cart. Usually, thousands and thousands of dollars are spent because their Princess Auto pales in comparison to the coffers that we have just full of wrenches and sockets.
And we don't use metric all the time. We've got a nice selection of standard because we've been to the moon, allegedly, and back,
Hmm.
and they have not allegedly been there. Uh, but so it's interesting because when we talk about, and just to dip into politics just a little bit,
Sure.
um, Texas is very red, but you were in a major city within there, which tend to be blue. And
Yep.
Houston, was it Houston?
Dallas.
Dallas. Oh, okay, never mind. Now maybe not so much Dallas, but Dallas still a little bit. It's kind of blue, right? Kind of a blue.
Surprisingly blue.
Yeah.
It was really unfortunate how blue it was in certain areas. Now, mind you, there were little red pockets throughout the city,
Mm.
but the area that I'm living in now, I can more freely talk without getting people wanting to have an argument with me about maybe a funny political quirk that I notice, whether it be red or blue. People are way more open to talk about it, and a lot more people lean right up in upstate New York versus actually being in the city proper. Though, like you said, the whole state of Texas is very, very red.
Yeah. So it's just a very interesting switch. So you go from a blue area in a red state to a red area in a blue state. And that's very that fits in pretty well with the people I know from upstate New York. More more politically conservative, much more down to earth. It really aligns more like what you see with people in Illinois as well. It's always been, it seems, the city attitude versus the county attitude.
It's
And you were
funny because around the election times, the only reason that New York actually goes blue is because of the city. Because per capita, compared with all the other surrounding counties and tri state areas, they have way more people, way more voters. But now that the city people are getting a serious dose of what illegal immigration looks like in your face with the bus loads that have been getting shipped inside there, we
and
may be seeing more of that red tide that everybody keeps hinting at.
yeah, I was checking. I've mostly checked out, especially since, like I have my opinions, and we've talked about it before in our own conversations, but
Yep.
I try to not to keep my nose on it as much. I used to be a very frequent um, visitor to Drudge Report, but Drudge got really it's kind of toxic now. It was
Wokeness
used to be
gets
a
its
fun place.
clutches in things and it just strangles it
Yeah.
every time, never fail.
I love disconnecting from politics as much as possible because it is such a it's either infuriating or it's driving you to do things and whatnot. I love the memes are great. The memes are great, but you know,
Yeah, I live for the memes. Absolutely.
yeah, the memes are great, but the rest of it, I could take it. I could leave it alone, and it is it is it's for the people. It's for political animals, and I think
Yeah.
that it's a good way. It's an easy way if you see people get lost on it. Maybe they just start freaking out about things online, and it just
They lose a sense of not just physical backbone, but it's depressing when you see Christians lose a sense of a spiritual backbone as well. Because the amount of negativity that I catch from people who would otherwise claim to be either cut from that cloth or subscribing to that certain way of life, they fall to pieces. Sometimes more frequently and to a way bigger degree than people who claim to be either atheistic or agnostic or don't claim one or the other. Well, and you and I've even talked about the Jesus culture music. Just about every other song you hear on a Christian radio station is, God, I'm so lost. Please dig me out of this trench I've dug myself into. Please just tell me it's going to be okay. I heard a song on the radio the other day which literally said the words, please, Jesus, just tell me it's going to be okay. I thought, okay, if we're really, really adhering well to what Paul lays down for us in the book of Romans and then all the subsequent the epistles, then we should recognize that as Christians, as Christ followers, we should be the most mentally sound creatures that walk the face of the earth. But yet, so many people wear fear as though it's the most beautiful mantle you could ever try and receive. And they use that as like their badge of what? The marginalism Olympics, so that they can feel accepted by a society that is already rampant with fear and anxiety.
yeah,
It's for the birds.
it's a and that's amazing. That's the other thing. Like there are some like you get to like the higher church guys and they're all about the liturgies and the old hymns, like not just the hymns that the southern hymns that we were raised with, but like
Yep.
the old hymns. And they kind of, and I think that there is a good place for them because a lot of them speak very well towards worship
Sure.
and putting God up where he belongs and the respect and dignity he is his right. And I think that there is also some good that comes out of a worship where you are coming from a place of vulnerability and stuff. But to
Definitely.
say, Jesus, please tell me it's okay. Guess what? Jesus is probably going to be like, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not okay. You need to clean up your act. It's okay that I do love you and I do still want you to do good, but that doesn't mean that it's okay. It
Yeah.
might not be. Um, and that's why I think we're when you start to focus on that part too much and get away too much from remember, God is an almighty deity. He's all powerful. He created all of this.
Yep.
Um, and so show some respect, show
Yeah.
some decorum here.
For
Um,
real.
yeah,
Take a page out of Daniel's book, who would recede into his little quiet place in his house. Now, granted, it was in front of his lattice work leading to his outside balcony, but he would go in by himself 3 times a day and he would have a discord with his creator. Um, Even when he was pouring through the book of Jeremiah and reading that, oh wow, Israel's captivity is about to be over. Shoot, we're due for liberation. He didn't just sit back and crack a book and go, oh well, I guess it'll be fine. This is going to take place anyway. The good Lord said it. No, he prayed for it all the more, and it's likely his prayers that actually helped the angel Michael get to him as quickly as he did. Because even Michael says, yeah, I would have gotten here quicker, but I was waylaid by the Prince of Persia. Now I got to go to Greece after this. So like, here's the good word of the Lord. People will be writing about this in 2000, nominally 2000 years about the 70th week of Daniel, and then we move on to all the prophecy buffs. So hang tight there, man. Israel's going to get freed. Adios.
Yeah.
Hey, he
See you
prayed
in the
for it
lion's
all
den.
the same. Yeah,
See
he
you in the
prayed
lion's
for
den.
it all the more. So if people did more hitting their knees and actually giving it up to God, man, you could see such a turnabout, especially inside the just the anxiety. Like I've already said, you can see such a tremendous movement towards actual competence and confidence, which I'm really hoping. And maybe it was discourse. Maybe discourse is what I wanted. Sorry, discourse with Daniel. Yeah, right. It's not Discord. Discourse
Well,
with Daniel.
Nernev has asked if God had a Discord with Daniel. He
Sorry,
may have.
discourse. That's what I meant.
He
Yeah,
may have.
discourse is the conversation. I think I'm mixing words. No, yeah, I got
Discourse
it
is
now.
right. Discourse
Okay.
is correct.
But
There
what
might
are
have
we
been
getting into?
There might. To me, it was. I don't have anything planned.
Oh,
I don't have anything planned. This is gonna be up. It was more kind of a. How about what was striking me is, how old's your kid now, roughly?
he's about to be 19 months old.
There we go. All right, so you're right over the 1.5 year mark. So
yes, just barely.
Tell me, if you can, how you feel like you have grown in that those 19 months from the day that I'm a dad to now when it's all right. I need to carve out some time to get some writing done before the little guy gets up.
Yeah.
So
So
where do you see yourself now?
it in that beginning chunk, and I'd say up until probably 4-ish months ago, we were moving very, very fast, just trying to hold on. Trying to hold on to energy because when we moved up to New York, I jumped into a full-time job working with Harbor Freight right away, but my wife and I still have our full-time job of audiobooks at the same time. So a lot of times it's I go to work and I come home, I've got the little guy for a little bit till he goes down to bed, and then it's right back to work. So it was a lot of that. And we were really backlogged from what we had booked before we actually made the move. But moving being what it was, it really took precedent.
Oh yeah.
So we couldn't get as much recorded just over that, I'd say, month-long process of us getting things situated in Dallas and then moving up to here. So it was still, as I said, very, very furious. And more in the last month, things have finally started to slow down a bit. By the grace of God, I was promoted at the job that I work from just regular part-time worker up to a supervisor position. And so that came with benefits and a full-time gig. And that in conjunction with being able to keep my Ford gig down in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, good.
Yep, I was
thought
able to keep it.
that wasn't looking good for a while.
No, it wasn't. It was real touch and go there for a bit, but I got the fantastic news. And it was great because I got to convert my father and mother-in-law's downstairs into a studio. So like I'm sitting in the walled off studio, which he actually built for us, and I helped him put the door on here, and then we padded everything out and I put up all the foam. But just outside this wall to my left, I have a full green screen, full lighting setup. I've got a gimbal that I 3D printed. We have our camera, our tripod, our just everything there is set. Lapel mic, the whole nine. And I had to do a test shoot essentially for the company that I was working with in conjunction with my agency down in Dallas, which I'm still with. And they had a couple other actors that they were tapping to see, oh, will they be a good fit for this gig out of McCombs Ford West? And McCombs decided, nope, we're sticking with our guy. So once a month, I set up down here. Kylie, she'll come in and she'll record for me. I have to do sort of speed plus tape at the same time. So I've got to do like my own little kind of the little cue clacker to start everything going. And then I send them the files, they take care of it. But I say all that to say that through the proceeds that have been generated from the full-time job, plus getting to work Ford, and then what has been coming in with audiobooks, Um, from what I've been bringing in alone has, by the grace of God, it's been all that we need. So it's giving Kylie more of an opportunity to not have to take on quite so many books. She can be more the full-time mommy that she really wants to be. And she's starting to find more time for herself to be able to get back to her writing, being able to stay in her devotional time with God, and just being able to have more energy all around it. It's working out well for both of us. So we had a great talk, and I had pointed it out to her. I said, "Look, you're still running wide out right now. You don't have to be full bore. You can take some time, and maybe you don't take 5 a month. Maybe you take 2 or 3 at the most. Maybe you push them out. You say, 'Hey, look, give me 2 or 3 weeks in between these here.' That way you can actually enjoy your time here and not feel like you're just trying to claw our way out of this debt hole that we're in." Um, but all that, pretty much all that road eaten up to where we are now, um, for the first time in a long time, still being a relatively new dad, only in my second year of my child's life, I feel like I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Um, it isn't quite a chore to try and engage with people as it was being inside the entertainment world. Because in the entertainment world, it it's so hard to actually have a genuine conversation with somebody who is otherwise your peer, because more often than not, people are trying to work an angle. They're calculating very rapidly in their head, what can I say or do to be able to use this person to my advantage? So I'd say probably 80% of the relationships that you have within that entertainment community are very superficial. They're all designed to try and help that person get to the next level. Or if you're the kind of person who has to try and leech off of success, it's designed to try and help you get to the next level. Where you'll say, think, be, and do whatever you have to just fit that mold that you need them to believe that you are, so that hopefully you get work. Um, I feel like I get to be more genuine here, even though I'm in, again, a very blue state. I feel like I get to be more genuine here, without any kind of reprisal in the form of a verbal smackdown or somebody just wetting their pants over something very firm and blunt that I've said happening. And it's very, very freeing.
Yeah, and I thought, when you were telling me about it, I thought I was like, this move's gonna be good, because just gauging her personality, um, is one that's like this guy's going to appreciate more space physically, uh,
Yes.
just more wide open space, and just more peace. He's going to be able to experience it. So, I mean, some of the things you were talking about, how quiet it is,
Oh
right?
my gosh. You can see so many stars at night too.
Right, and more space, and more room with a kid who's becoming less dependent on getting from point A to point B,
Yeah.
learning to run and play, and being able to be part of that, right? And being part of that activity, instead of going, all right, we got to find a park somewhere to go to. I mean, I don't know. I've never been part of city life. I've never wanted to
Mm.
be, but it's just, my when I go to into cities like New York City, and you got to look straight up to see the sky. That's not where I immediately get claustrophobic. So,
Yeah, right. It's weird because it did feel so very claustrophobic in Dallas even. Not nearly as bad as when I was in Nashville, because everything is right on top of itself in Nashville. And it was brutal to try and drive around there because you're not required by law to actually signal when you're even changing lanes, and they don't paint a reflective paint on the actual pavement. So when it rains, your guess is as good as mine as to where the lane actually starts and ends. Um, Out here, it's it's given me a lot more time to, I don't want to say reconnect with God, because I've been very, very close with him, and I am in my Bible, and I am in my devotional time, but it's given me the pause that I needed from being needed. Um, the friend group that we were a part of, I say friend group with a grain of salt because it was a lot of entertainment people.
Mhm.
It felt like I was always having to put out fires. Just about every other day, I was getting a phone call from somebody with some new crisis, and it was almost always career related. Oh, they said the wrong thing to some person, or they weren't sure about this callback, or oh, the director mentioned this to me at the end, and I don't know what that means. And I was having to tell these people, hey, look, get a hold of yourself, and kind of running them down the rabbit hole of solutions that should otherwise present themselves to a person who can think cogently. um Man, it felt so great, and it does feel so great to not be so instrumental for so many people, even though maybe that's part of me, maybe that's selfish in saying, um but it's given me time to take care of myself more, because I felt like I was really giving a lot there. But in those quiet times, I've been thinking a lot more about the nature of love. um Now, throughout the Bible, there's four different types of love. You have eros, which is that that fiery, passionate love that you would have for your romantic partner, your wife or your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend. You have the astorge love. You have the agape love, and you have the phileo. Um, and just reading through the pretty much stock chapter that any Christian couple is going to have read during their wedding, 1 Corinthians 13,
First,
where it
yeah.
goes, yeah, love is this, 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 this. Well, Paul lays out um, 16 characteristics of love right there. And you can go through and you can read the Proverbs, and you can find more characteristics pointed out in love. And those ones delve often with being a good disciplinarian, giving a firm rebuke and or punishment if it's needed. And then Jesus points out more degrees and more measures and more steps to love. And I've been thinking a lot about that in conjunction with being a father and having a son. And it's so interesting, the kind of love that we are privy to exhibit and are allowed to exhibit here in this temporal realm that we find ourselves in. Whereas God is that agape love. He's that love that it's not so much an emotional, physical type of love. It's not that, what's the word? It's not a it's not a passionate sort. Well, it is passionate. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not, I guess it's not that affectionate type of love where you're gushing over a person. It's a constant, um, it's a watchful, it's a caring, it's a dutiful love. And I've been getting to, just as I'm watching little Christian, as I'm watching him grow, I'm getting to see all the different ways that I'm able to love him. Because while God is very passionate, and while he does have that intensity within him, because we're in his image, so obviously he's got to have that same kind of passion in a number of respects. We see him confining himself to the agape, limitless love. Whereas we can exhibit the astorge, the phileo, the eros, the agape, in so much as we can stifle our own frustrations and hatred of this, that, and the other to exhibit that love. And it's amazing to be able to work in those four different mediums in relation to Christian.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think where you're at um, really it's kind of like the backdrop. It's setting the stage. It's setting the mood, right? You get out there, and I think you've got a pretty good. I mean, any type of wide open spaces will do this.
Mm-hmm.
You see the trees and some hills, maybe some mountains in the background or whatever, but just being out in the country, seeing farmland or whatever, any type of where you just get a very good view of what God has created, and it's in the majesty behind it. And it's kind of like it's like you said, it's peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's reassuring in a way. It's just, it's and then from there you're in a good headspace, I think, to get, like you said, you're not that you've drifted away from God, but get even closer,
Yeah.
right? You like
That's
your
probably exactly. I
yeah,
think
and
that's
it's like
exactly it.
now I've been close, I've been studious and everything, but now that I've had it, now that I've got less on my plate, now that I've got a less stressful, more relaxing environment that I'm in, I can drift in more. I can drift in more, and I can appreciate those things, and look, I mean, life gets busy, especially like I can only imagine. I mean, I remember for the most part, I was by myself at lunchtime because I didn't have very many friends in high school, and I sat wherever I could. And one of them was with the drama kids and the theater kids and whatnot. And man, you could tell even from right there, like everything I see in Hollywood now, it just like it all goes back to those years I spent sitting at the drama table, and it was just like, man, these guys like there is nothing but anxiety and stress and
Yep.
gossip and what
Oh
all
yeah.
this other stuff. And it's funny because so many of them are, kind of outcasts in and of themselves. They're not the popular kids and they're not the
Mm-hmm.
jocks and they're not the I mean, a lot of them are bright academically, but they don't fit in with other groups. So they're just they kind of take keep to themselves. And just it's just a weird group to get into, but yeah, like I always got the impression high stress, high
Yep.
anxiety.
They eat their own. They,
Yeah, and it's self-inflicted. Like so much of it is self-inflicted because it's almost like they want it to be there. It's like, you know, you say there's some women like the drama, right? They like creating drama around themselves, and you see it if you've
oh
ever been
yeah.
in, especially if you've ever been involved with a woman like that.
Oh god.
It just happens, right?
Yup.
Um,
Been there. Bought that T-shirt.
seen and yeah, yeah, be the buddy of a guy, be the buddy of a friend who is dating a girl like that, and even I think it's even more exhausting sometimes.
Yeah,
But
because you're having to play his emotional fluffer, if you
oh,
will, because he can't even hack it on his own with his lady.
it just bleeds right over, right?
Mhm. Oh,
All right.
yeah, it cripples poker night, there's no Halo playing with the person anymore,
It's
God
always
forbid
something
you
in the
try and go
background.
to lunch and have him not cry into his glass of Coke while he's trying to eat his hamburger with a sense of humor.
All
Oh,
right. Well, before we drift any further into our conversation, where I'm going to get into the chats now. We For those of you who are new, which is almost all of you, or newer to the chat, which is almost all of you, before the very the boon that was the Nick Ricada
mm,
homeschool stream. Eric and I had it was a fixture every other Tuesday
yep,
night. It was me and him talking about various things. Most of what we were talking about, and I highly recommend going back there, is the problems at the pulpit, where we really tackle a
yes.
lot of, and these things keep happening, but it's just like, let's move on to something else because it's repetitive. The amount of sin and false testimony and everything is just
Oh,
it's the same thing. It's just hashed into different pictures, right? But Eric's been a great contributor to this show, great friend of the show. And most of you who came over from Nick Stream know Eric from the voice acting side of him, and the things and the canceling of of Eric, which you all know is unfair and unjust, but he's not the first and he's not going to be the last.
very true.
However, what a lot of people might not know is that Eric's actually got a pretty successful YouTube page of his own, because Eric is at heart, a builder, a craftsman. And if you are of the nerdy type like me, you appreciate a lot of his creations, which I think is the best thing is um, the Master Chief, um,
Thank
the
you.
armor that you've created. And if you go onto his YouTube channel, Angelegend, which it says right there in his name, I'll pull my finger back, right there in his name, Angelegend, 1L. You can see that. Now, what else is all about, Eric is all about, is his faith, right? Is his Christianity, his faith in God, which was something that struck me when he first was on Nick's show, and I ended up reaching out to him, and we had a conversation. It went really well, and then that's how he started coming on. But I think that's the deeper things to him. So if you are coming from Nick's show, if you're a big fan of Nick and you recognize Eric from that, Also, look, these are the other sides of Eric that we talk about here for the most part. We've talked about a little bit about the canceling, and we'll
Mhm.
talk and about the drama, like you said, that you've dealt with around um, what is clearly a very drama filled industry. But you know, there are there exist in those circles outliers, uh, folks who fit into a set and fit into a need, but don't necessarily meet aren't the archetype
Yeah.
of what you normally find, and that's and I would think that that Eric's a good definition of that. Very down to earth, very much got his head on straight, and
You
this is me
humble me.
building him up for no reason other than just as an introduction, um, but he's a lot like us. He's a thinker. He's a man of faith. He's a man of many things that also just tends to be very good at voice acting and enjoys it. And so
Big and short
that's
of
the
it.
best part is, because you're more self-sufficient than most, that if somebody tries to take that away from you, you can just go, yeah, well, I'll do something else.
Yeah,
So,
very much so.
all right. So the first one on the show, and he's been getting on my case because I haven't had you on since, is Nernath. Now, apparently, Nernath and you have hung out before. I don't know if you recognize the name. He probably will drop it. But he said, I knew that name once. Blaine's Escape Corner. Blaine is a big anime fan, and he runs a anime YouTube called Blaine's Escape Corner, where he
Oh,
reviews a
awesome.
lot of anime, discusses anime, a lot of Gundam talk, and he's hit or miss on his automotive takes. Sometimes he agrees with me, which makes him right, and sometimes he disagrees, which makes him terribly wrong. And then Nernaeth, much though that was one, much that once was is lost. For none now live who remember it. It began with the advent of the great boomerang. 3 weeks were spent in denial, avoidance, lateness, and forgetfulness of all things. 7 days were spent in silence, the great empty space of time, lost to the void. And nine days were spent in fantasy football, baseball. Thank you. I'm the
Oh.
champion as of today. Who above else sucks time. But then all of them were thwarted, redeemed for another Eric stream occurred on the channel of Stuart on the platform of Susan. The latent gay collapsed upon itself, overriding all other boomerang. And into this stream he poured his breadedness, his paper, and his will to stream once more. One stream to rule them all. This is what I I said this to Fig when he came in the Gilded stream. I said, look, I was the mastermind behind Nick's YouTube demise because Fig said that Nick was his favorite YouTuber. And so I said, now he's gone. Now I'm your favorite YouTuber. And that was the whole motivation behind it. So Dresden's in the chat. Welcome. I've got a lot more viewers now than we used to get. Porcupine Mayhem is here. John Smoth, he's a Canadian. This Canadian is jealous. Princess Auto sucks. So he knows the struggle.
Oh.
Neo is in here. Tony says that guy on the right is so handsome. Your right or mine?
That's my buddy Tony from work.
That is the answer to that is always yes. And then here's Eric, or here's Nernaeth. Eric's microphone looks like a Neapolitan ice cream sandwich crossed with a Cascade washer pod with speed wash, quick dry ball, Powerball.
Sure does. Jet dry.
I mean, it just looks red to me.
Yeah, a little silver on the side here.
Blaine's Escape Corner. The only good politics are the politics of a good Gundam show.
Ooh.
Is it worth it? Look, we've already had some monologuing. So yes, we do have a lot in common with the Gundam show.
Little
Now
endless
we just need
waltz.
some super emotional somebody dies in a robot somewhere.
Yeah,
I'll get you back for that.
We'll put on 11th Man Down by Nightwish in the background here, guns a-blazing.
Apparently the chat craves and demands Sabaton.
Sabaton.
So, and have you ever heard of Sabaton?
Possibly?
Maybe. I don't know. So, look, let me hide this comment. So apparently Sabaton is kind of a metal band, I would say. I'm
Okay.
sure I'm gonna get criticized for however I describe this. But the themes of all their songs are like historical military conflicts or whatnot. Like, so if you go onto their YouTube page, the one that I came across was a song about the Red Baron, which was
Okay.
it was pretty cool. And like the songs are pretty cool. And so, but they, so many Sabaton fans apparently that happen to be in this chat, and they're all like, "Yes, play Sabaton." And so I listened to it one day while I was playing some games, and I was like, they're all right. They're all right. And there we go. A couple of comments down. To ask the real question, does he know about Sabaton? Well, now he has some homework.
Yeah, I guess I do. Okay, so I'll look up them. You'll have to look up this one. I got introduced to this band by my boss, and the band is Gimli, Son of Gloim, from the Lord of the Rings series. And it's just this super, super, super heavy metal, like crazy guitar riffs, a lot of double bass, no lyrics at all. It's almost like Dream Theater, but darker in a way. And the only time you actually hear a voice inside there is when they have little sound bites of Gimli from the movie. So he played this song for me. And it was just this guy shredding on his guitar, the bassist just killing his, drummer going bananas, and you hear, he was twitching because he's got my axe embedded in his nervous system.
And the name of the band is Gimli, Son of Gloin.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, okay. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Look, I am a sucker for anything Lord of the Rings that is not the Amazon show that is a terrible monstrosity. We'll get into that in a minute, I'm sure. Because now it's in my head, and now I'm gonna yell about it and scream about it because look, you've heard me. You've heard me talk about it. Blaine says my buddy Jordan only says good things about Eric, and you've yet to prove him wrong.
You humble me.
Yeah, there we go. Well, if you see Jordan, as the song goes, high school's over. Nernant Stewart, you have more subs than Nick now.
Oh, we all have more subs than Nick now. Oh
no, you killing it. How many you've got what, 40,000 subs on yours?
Me? I think I got 14,000.
14,000? Maybe it's 14.
I know. I've got to get more content out is what I need. I'm actually going to be I'm going to have to do them after dark, but I'm going to be doing some live streams here. I plan to get a live stream going. I want to try and see how once a week goes first, and then my goal is to get up to 3 times a week.
Okay. Well, I won't say always available, but drop me a line if you ever need or want a co-host on there, because absolutely. There we go. Blaine said Stewart's auto takes are as flawed as his username. Don't listen to Blaine. He's silly. He watches anime. He tries his best, but his racing helmet is made of foam. It is not, as a matter of fact.
Oh, no.
I'll go down it. I'll bring it back. I'll bring it up some point. So, do a Sabaton reactions. No, we're not going to do Sabaton reactions. We're going to do reactions to shows that we haven't watched. Look at, because now we're talking about it. Eric has heard me on many an evening while we've been playing Halo about my irritation at what Hollywood does to the best of our series, the things that we love the most, right? The things that we love the most. They took Jack Ryan series from me, that Tom Clancy made, and they made it into they did a mediocre job with it. But the Without Remorse movie was awful and unforgivable. They took Wheel of Time and just stomped on it. And now, and before Amazon, Paramount took Halo and made it into a terrible, unrecognizable mess of social justice warrior garbage, as opposed to badass spaceman heroism.
And a face reveal in the first episode. Come on, at least get 5 or 6 in.
You gotta
and
they
didn't even play the game. The creators admitted to not even playing the game.
Yeah, look, You got to watch that series on legendary difficulty.
Oh,
You got
yeah.
to watch the first season on legendary difficulty in order to get a face reveal.
Yeah, and hide all the sharp objects so you don't gouge your eyes out.
Oh man, yeah, I heard about and I haven't heard much about it since. So it sounds. I mean, I guess it's whatever. So maybe hopefully it's on its way out. Amazon, and then this happened. The thing I'd geek out about the most, which is Lord of the Rings, and it has been like just to hear about it. I got a buddy who, we give him a bunch of grief. He said he was going to go watch it, and he was making fun of me, talking about how great, the different things that he knew were inaccurate were that he was seeing. And then, but at the end, he was just at the end, it stopped being a great troll, and it started to be actually very frustrating for him. And at the end, he's like, I cannot stand Galadriel. She is an awful human, and that's the part. She was always well regarded. She was always loved and well respected because that was her thing. She was grace. She was
Yeah,
power.
exactly. Grace encapsulates her
Yes,
perfectly.
she was the most beautiful before Arwen. She was the most beautiful woman, elf, but woman out there. Period. Right, and she was in awe for it. And she had her power was not a that you would see on the battlefield in armor with a weapon. Her power was magical and kind of I don't know. She's like, it's like the whole point of Lothlorien, the forest of Lothlorien, was because she had put it under a spell, and her power radiated through it, which made it a place where people got lost and all these other things. Oh yeah, Luthien. Yeah, I forgot. I always forget about Luthien. Thanks, you, Nernath, who is probably the more read on Tolkien lore than I am. But that was her thing. But no, they have to give her strong whammon powers and make her so much into this warrior captain that she ends up becoming unlikable. And it's just like, and so you've already alienated the fan base because this was all this is not what we wanted. This is not what we were expecting. You could have easily made this better. And,
yeah. Well, isn't it just so tragic when instead of giving you a strong female character, they present to you a bitch? And a prime example of that, and you'd think that Hollywood would have figured it out right now, that people don't care for that trope and it's actually repulsive, almost vomit inducing. You'd think they would have figured it out by now, because they did it with Captain Marvel. Originally a guy, mind you. Originally, the original Shazam was Captain Marvel. But they did it with Captain Marvel, and Brie Larson on a good day is darn near unlikable. But then you put her with the dykiest haircut they can come up with for her character inside the Avengers movies, and you make every single scene that she's in a scowl fest. And then she's supposed to show up and be this saving grace of the day, takes down Thanos' ship, and then she is able to almost get the gauntlet away from him, but no, he's still just a hair stronger. But then we got this huge array of female warriors behind, and oh wow, let's do this girls rule boys drool-esque scene here. And it's so off-putting because instead of just letting these female characters be strong in their own right, even with their flaws and their weaknesses, they overcompensate by every time they're speaking, it's got to be witty quips meant to deride men. Anytime they're making a physical move, or there's some sort of body language issue, or maybe a look is given, it's always in a very condescending way to a man. And they turn the female characters into people that, if you were trying to have a polite discourse with at the bar one day, you might decide that there's not enough beer in the world to jump on that grenade. And it's driving me up a wall that is the image that so many people are viewing as what a strong woman should be, is somebody who is just a bitch, somebody who is off-putting, somebody who is rude and somehow that's supposed to be like the catalyst for what would then help you grow into an even stronger person. Like, oh, well, first I've got to start off and just give everybody the metaphorical finger, and then I've got to treat them all like they're dirt beneath my heels, and then suddenly that will make me more desirable, especially in the bedroom, which surprise, we all the stats are in on this, and it's been literally clinically checked out in a multitude of different polling units online, that guys and gals cannot live the exact same life, because where most men are able to still be um I guess are still able to be viable mates even later on into their 40s and 50s, some even in their 60s. You know, a nice looking silver fox, and maybe he's got a cool car and he's made his millions. Women though, no, no. Unfortunately, if you try and sow your oats like a guy does, maybe some some boi who's involved in a fraternity. If you try and emulate that, you make yourself incredibly undesirable, because no guy wants to be with a woman who's been with 40 other men before them.
Yeah.
And the idea of, oh, I'll just put off marriage till later on and guys will still want me. No. Whereas a guy may be wanted for his intellect, a woman will be wanted initially for her physical prowess, because that's that spark that makes us go, I want to go talk to her
Yeah.
because she's gorgeous. And I'm hoping that there's more behind that gorgeous face than just the gorgeous face.
It's to me, it's the attractiveness and the um just the alluring nature of
Yes.
femininity, like true femininity. Like that's why, like to me, it's just like a character, the female character who is the grizzled, angry, person. Like that works when it's like the old woman who's been around the block and like has
Yep.
done and seen everything and doesn't have time for anybody. It works there, right? That's what it works, and we all love it, appreciate it, because we probably have a family member, an aunt or a grandmother, or somebody like that who acts that way, who's been right there, and it's I
Hey,
mean,
hey,
that's
what's up, Kaden?
but what is it that but what is it that what we find alluring in a person who, or a woman who is 20s, 30s, 40s? What are we looking for? It's not that grizzled, because that comes off as just angry. It comes off as forced and contrived. It comes off as
World
very
weary.
Mary Sue ish, because that's how you have to end up. That's how it always those tropes always end up going.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like who you try to think of a likable uh, woman character in a warrior form, and how that plays off. Think of Brienne of Tarth in Game of
Mm.
Thrones, because she's awkward, right?
Yep.
And she's serious. She's trying to be serious, but she's also wrestling with her identity and everything. Like she's a real person, and there's some comedy with that, right? And but it's honest comedy, and for that it's just like, oh yeah, she's kind of a goober, but at the same time I really like her. You kind of root for her, because she's trying to do the good thing. Whereas when you see the other side of it, what makes a good woman um a villain, and it's the things that women villains have now naturally been good at, like with the Delilahs and the Jezebels, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
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 femme
cunning, the
fatales.
sly, the behind the scenes, making things move and everything. Using specific tactics in a way that's what builds a good female villain, right? Your witches in or stepmothers in the old fairy tales that we know through
Mm-hmm.
Disney.
Yep.
These are things like that. It's not you know, it's not just the snappy woman that, the quarrelsome woman that drives you onto the roof of a house,
Mm-hmm.
to use biblical reference. It's not,
Yeah, up into the leaky rooftop.
because people don't, because ultimately, like, people don't respect, and Nerneath used the word nagging. Um, People don't respect that trait. They don't like it. They don't want to be around it.
Mm-mm.
Um, if people are hanging around it, it's because there's something in it for them. So, like you said, like they
Yes.
with the Hollywood thing, everybody's biting at each other, and everybody's a busybody, and everybody's in all that stuff's going on. It's not that folks are genuinely like smarter in Hollywood. No, it's just that's the trap that they're all in, and so everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's going, backbiting against each other, and has information on whatever. And we don't like that. That's stuff that is saved for celebrity gossip magazines that
Mhm.
ladies read because it gives them something to entertain them in ways that I don't understand it. I mean,
Yeah,
they
and
got
like
it. It's something for that's not part of my
yeah. Well, and like it's interesting too because the difference between these vessels that we are, you've got the male, you've got the female. The differences between them, while we both have strengths and we both have weaknesses, they're not meant to just simply be exploited by the other. They're meant to be understood and received as this gift. Like when the good book says the two become of one flesh, where Adam he looks at Eve and goes, "You are flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone." No, for this reason is a man going to leave his mother and cleave to his wife, and they will become of one. It's when you join up, you're saying to them, "Hey, here's my heart. Um, in the areas where you're going to be strong in, I'm very likely not going to be strong in. In the areas you're weak in, I'm very likely going to be strong in. So please take my heart, knowing that full well that I'm going to need you to be strong for me, just as I'm strong for you." And we've even talked about it before on your show, where the original word for Eve, which was then the word for woman, is only used twice in the whole Bible, was sorry, Ezer Kenegdo, and it's only used once by Jesus Christ in reference to the church. And what it translates out to be is his shield, the helping answer to him. Whereas the man is seen as the sword, the woman is seen as the shield, the tactful one, the one who can protect his heart.
Yeah.
Um, and like women playing the role of the sword, it's a role that they weren't designed to step into. And you when they do that, they make themselves very, very much like an urchin. Oh, sure, maybe beautiful to behold, but you don't want to get near it, because there's only pain there. There's inside the animal kingdom there is, and this is kind of a little bit of a tangent here, but there it's called the hedgehog's dilemma, and any of my Evangelion fans will know what it is. But when two hedgehogs, because they're to my understanding they mate for life, and when they settle on a mate and they decide that they want to try and procreate, um the closer they get to each other, the more that they hurt themselves with their quills. So for them to be in love is to be in pain, but it has this eventual goal of offspring and being able to reproduce and have their little hedgehog family. Um, People's relationships can very much be that way without them intending to, if they can't adopt the roles that were designed for them. But it also requires men to step up and actually take the reins and be the strong figure that a woman needs to lean on, because in the relationships that I've seen it most prevalent, where a woman feels like she needs to just take charge all the time, it's because the guy that she is with lacks the cojones to just step up and own the situation.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy because that so often is the case. But it requires us guys to get out there and you know kill the cow, drag it home ourselves, be that for them. It's definitely not something that you can just decide to be good at. Like it's going to take effort and work to be that. Just like it takes effort and work for a woman to be the nurturer, to be the one who can just cut you down with a look when your kid is getting out of hand, who can give him that stern, hey, you wait till we get home, you wait till your father gets home, and put the fear of God into him, make a house, um, and protect each other's
Yeah.
hearts.
I mean, it's to me, it's so many people get lost because get lost on the all the appeal and the flashiness of the male role, and that's only true when the male is actually fulfilling his role. And that's why I said, the complementarianism, which is that, the two sides playing off of each other to make a better team. You know, you have to recognize your role and responsibility, the pros and the cons, and
Yep.
and on the other side, the wife, the pros and the cons in that, and understand that there is honor, and there is real pride to be taken. And I'm not talking about the sinful pride, but just pride and joy to
Mhm.
be taken in fulfilling those roles in your way. And women a lot of times do not get the outward appreciation. They don't actually get those accolades, but inside, within the family especially, but also within the community, there is honor there, and there is respect that
Oh
is given for
yeah.
women who do fall into those rules, because we look at things like grace, like
Hmm.
like support, how that of a good mother, of a good matriarchal role, of a good woman who just has the act together on behind the scenes, and does what she can to facilitate her husband's success, or uses her, or maybe she's the stronger one, and her husband is successful because of her support behind him,
Right.
specifically because of that.
It's like I love the term meekness is not weakness. Meekness is strength under control. And I think too many women out there are being fed this lie that to show any kind of vulnerability is a weakness. To submit in the areas that they need to a man, whereas a guy needs to learn how to stand and be a support where they need to for their woman. They see it as a weakness, and it's not a weakness, and it's not demeaning to be submissive on both ends of the spectrum, because like whereas us guys, we're very big picture and women are the details. Well, the number of times where I come home and I'm dead set on doing something, but it's because I've thought of, okay, well, here's the start, and then this is where I want to end up, and the middle, we'll figure it out later.
We'll
My
get it.
wife is
We'll get
like,
there. We'll get
yeah.
there somehow.
My wife is like, hold up a second. Do you think about so and so? What about this? How about that? What if it's raining outside? What about tomorrow when we got to do such and such? And I'm like, oh, shoot. Yeah. Maybe so maybe I need to rethink this. And then
Maybe
she's
I'm the
like,
big. Maybe I'm the
yeah,
idiot.
maybe I need to, get your input here. And then and this has happened countless times, but she'll give me the details. I go, okay, cool. Now I can go from here to there. And it makes the trip that much easier. It makes the project or whatever the event is go off without a hitch, because we're both filling in those complementary roles. Like is it any wonder why when you look at these statistics for same-sex relationships, is it any wonder why there is such physical and verbal abuse prevalent inside them, and especially in female to female relationships? The statistics on abuse and abusive relationships are staggering, because you're not meant to cohabitate with somebody of the same sex, because where you're weak, they're weak, where you're strong, they're strong, and you're just butting together like this. It's like, why would you want to try and find someone to be with that is exactly like you? Because instead of doing this, you can't do that. You can't fit together. Yeah, we're not doing this either. Yeah, no, we're not doing,
Stop. No, don't do that on
we're
this show.
not doing this over here.
That's awful. Stop it. Stop it. Save it for Nick Ricada's rumble scream. But and
But
I started that. That's my fault.
yeah, but like
But
that's
and
also
look,
sort of what I've been thinking about with all the love that I've been studying.
how often are the folks in those relationships, victims or of their own trauma? And this is it, it, to me it's a sad state, because it
Oh
just
yeah.
feeds on itself.
Oh yeah.
And to me it's like I said, I wish I had a better answer for things, but other than just, you have to humble yourself,
Mhm.
and you have to give up that anxiety to God. Look, I know that this is,
Yes.
I don't know. I'm kind of, I'm speaking, I'm trying. There's not a way that I can say it that'll come off as anything charitable, because I don't come from that background. That's not my life, and that's not my experience.
Mhm.
So I'll just come off as holier than thou. But if I say that, this, like, look, if the Christian, which we acknowledge as Christians as the truth, and as Christians, we know what God's expectations are,
Yes.
and maybe that's not our thing that we struggle with. But that is something that you struggle with if you have this um, affinity, identity, whatever you want to call it. You have to reconcile how you are going to get past this to get to where God wants you. The same way that the rest of us have to deal with our own vices and struggles and shortcomings, and how we're going to get from this. But it starts with recognizing that what you're doing is contrary to what God's expectations, God's rules, and what God determines as good and bad is. And if you try to make excuses for it, if you try to live in spite of it, if you try to
Mhm.
tell people that the Bible says something or that God is wrong, it's it's a non-starter to me.
Yeah.
It's a non-starter, that. And so, and like I said, he created the world was created in a specific way, and his rules exist for a reason, because these are the instructions for us to live in at most harm in the most harmony as possible with the world as it exists. And when we see a
Mhm.
step away from that, when you see those relationships, when you see men not fulfilling their roles,
Oh,
and we are
man.
not the protector, or when in fact we're the abuser, or we're the lout, who's the or the woman is not is unfaithful. Well, okay, when we're not coming into our roles correctly,
Mhm.
there's discord, and it doesn't just affect us. Um, it affects our kids when they see it,
Oh, yeah.
and how they see that. So what your kid, what your son sees in your mom, his mom supporting you, and you leading and helping her, and guide the family, are things that he takes away,
Mhm.
and then ultimately he'll be able to lean against that experience when he's making his own decisions. They'll be
Absolutely.
his own decisions to make, but you've
100%.
done what you can to build him up to where he should be.
Yeah. And, like,
So,
I I get really super excited when, and it's very rare that you see this now, and this is just a touch on entertainment, briefly again, but I get really, really excited when you see a film or a show or a game or just a piece of entertainment that is designed simply to be that, entertaining. Like, a prime example of that is the new Godzilla series and King Kong series. Within that, you see movies again for the entertainment value. Um, they don't have to browbeat you over the head with weird politically correct topics. They don't have to try and preach to you by making these faux situations where one character is really bigoted or has certain biases and then he gets told off by another character, almost alwast female. They're not doing that. You're getting to watch gigantic monsters kick the crap out of each other and raise whole cities to the ground. Um, and to that end, I've been going back and I've been watching some shows that I used to watch all the time when I was young. And what are the three big hot button things that always get brought up in any news cycle, especially if there's a bit of derision between a certain choice or decision that has to be made? Well, either race, sex, or your political leanings get brought up into it. And it's more often than not, it's racially related. That's the biggest fire catcher when it comes to our news cycles, because that's what they're forcing people to focus on. And then you have these shows where they're doing this very obvious thing where they're without sometimes they're telling you just flat out being very meta, but without telling you, they're often going, hey, look, and here's our black kid, and oh, hey, here's our female black kid, and oh, check it out, we got our Asian there, and oh, there's our Indian guy there, and here's our practicing Hindu, and here's our gay couple, and here's our super gay couple, and here's our poly couple, and here's all this slew, this giant mixed bag of all of our box checking. Whereas you watch a show like Magic School Bus, and they didn't have to tell you crap. They had representation of literally every part of the culture within that show bound up in those 8 kids. You had your white kids, you had your Asian kid, you had a couple of black kids, you had your token ginger, you had a whimsical teacher who took them out and showed them the world via those super fun field trips. They learn about bees, they learn about salmon, they learn about dinosaurs, and not once did any of them have to go, oh yeah, why don't you go ahead and tell us how this is going to go because you're black and we all need to hear from you. We all need to be quiet. Not once did somebody go, hey, yeah, because you're Asian, this makes sense that you should be the one to head this up. It was like, no, they simply just let it be. They let these kids interact with each other without telling them that one of them had to concede to the other or how they should interact. Same thing with Captain Planet. You've got this broad spectrum of representation there, but they're not pointing out to the viewer going, hey, do you see how we got our black guy? Hey, do you see how we got our Asian girl? Hey, how about our foreign blonde girl? Do you guys see that too? They just simply let it be, and they let the moral be told by what happens in the story instead of either in the beginning, middle, or end saying, hey, so we've done all this because we're trying to tell you X, Y, and Z. Now with Captain Planet at the end, they did show you how to recycle, and they told you what might be better for the environment. But at least they were upfront about the fact that, hey, this is a show designed to tell kids to recycle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, but that's you knew that agenda was going to be there. But that was the and I'm going to pull it up because I was looking it up because you made me think of it while you were making that point. Because the big thing with today or yesterday was that Velma from Scooby-Doo in the new movie is going to be a lesbian. So that's the big thing. So if you search Velma on Google, this is legitimately what pops up.
Jeez.
And Hans had a great thing. His comment was, "Remember, girls, if you're not attractive, that means you're a lesbian." I love how the woke treat this as some great moment of trailblazing inclusivity, ignoring the fact that the Velma is a lesbian thing was always rooted in the quite profoundly misogynistic notion that less than beautiful women should just opt out of heterosexuality already. Velma is a lesbian was always the way that young dudes would remind each other that you're not supposed to find girls who look like that attractive. Same with Peppermint Patty.
Not gonna lie, for like the first few episodes of Charlie Brown that I watched, I thought Peppermint Patty was a dude.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of comes off like, but but she's the tomboy, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's the tomboy, but and it's to me that's no different from the Sam and Frodo or Merry and Pippin friendships, right? The left sees that the folks who want to just force agendas on people, they see something which is just a nat. Charles Schultz did not create Peppermint Patty to be that. He created Peppermint Patty as the tom girl who was in the sports. We all knew somebody. I married one. I married one. My wife was a 2-sport athlete, and she was much more comfortable in those settings than in others. But she also had the American Girl. When at home, she also had the American Girl dolls, and she also had all of her other things that she was into. But we all knew the Tom girl, and and a lot of us were friends with her because she came out and hung out with the guys.
Yeah.
There wasn't an ulterior identity behind that. And the same thing with Sam and Frodo. It's like, oh, it's a secretly gay relation. No, it's like and this is coming from they were written by a man who was in World War I. And one of the things that I think you find deeply are how quickly you can create a very deep and meaningful friendship with another man when you're in that situation, at those kind of situations. And life and death was for everybody on those lines.
Yeah.
right? So he was experiencing it firsthand. You understand that. You understand that you can have a brotherly, very emotionally attached uh, friendship with somebody
Mhm.
and especially when you're in a time of crisis and you're leaning on each other. That the mid, you're the guy you're sharing the foxhole with, right? But they want to make it
Absolutely.
into something that it isn't because they see it and they can't relate to it, but it fills some sort of stereotype. It's close enough to some sort of stereotype where they're like, "Ooh, people like these people. Let's make them into this."
Yeah, it's like it's amazing how the narrative of the story itself and the intention behind whatever the driving force is for them. You know, for your protagonist, maybe they've got to go and they've got to slay the dragon, they've got to get the sacred chalice, and they've got to save the princess. All of that actual story becomes secondary to, oh yeah, and these guys are gay as hell for each other, and oh yeah, we also have to make sure that we're representing these other factions of people. We also have to make sure that we're having a scene to show some girl talking down to a guy, and we're going to make this guy just the biggest buffoon you've ever seen. The story takes a secondary route to that. The story is completely secondary to these little box checking moments that they force into there. It's like trying to watch the all female version of Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters.
The fact that anytime you have to make a movie and then gloat about, hey, check out our all female cast, check out our all black cast, check out our all Spanish cast or our all Asian cast. Okay, who's that for? Who's that for? Because all you've told me in that very, very short sentence is you're not inclusive. You're completely uninclusionary, you're exclusive, and there's some inherent strength in being exclusive and exclusatory. And I'm supposed to like that now because you're excluding everybody else. You're proud about it. And oh, hey, check it out. Not only is it an all black cast, but it's an all black female cast, or an all Asian female cast, or an all
Yeah.
white female cast. Yeah,
And
let's make an all
what do
female Ocean's 11.
what do the producers say about it? Well, it's not for you. And then they get mad when you don't watch it or you don't like it.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
right.
fine. You create, but and you see when you create that and you create those divisions, those are specifically unchristian tenets, right? We are beyond where God has taken a tribe out and chosen that for the covenant, right? That's what Jesus came and did. He
Yep.
opened those things up or made it easier because I mean, there were righteous men outside of the Jewish or the Hebrew nation before that, but he opened it up. He just lifted all those tore down all those barriers and became us Gentiles. This is for you too. This is
Yep.
what God created you and put you on the planet as well, and this is what He wants for you. What He's done for the Jews, we're opening that up, and we're going to make it a little bit different so that it is more accessible to everybody, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to what we're seeing the left do, which is put everybody in a category and try to
Yeah,
put everybody into a group and pit groups against other groups.
that's such a great segue because, like, when you look at what takes place in Acts 2, when the actual infilling of the Holy Spirit happens, they make a point. Luke makes a point inside there to write down, hey, not only did this whole thing take place in the upper room, potentially 128 people in attendance, but he points out all the different nationalities that were hearing these people laud about the exploits of their God, their king. And then it makes a point to go even further and say, and hey, check it out. Proselytes were also hearing these people rejoicing. And on that day, what did it say? About 3,000 were added to their ranks
Oh
and
yeah,
many
yeah.
more to come. So that right there was this incredible unifying thing because the Bible up to that point, the entire Old Testament up to Acts 2 was all about Israel. And then from Acts 2 on, it was about us collectively as the church. That was the biggest unifying move. And that's why I love when Paul even says, look, there is now no more distinction, neither Jew or Greek, slave or free. We are all born of the same Father who is in all and through all. We were all made to drink of the same cup. baptized into his death, but also baptized into his life. Like Romans 6 is such a godsend of a chapter to read because you recognize, oh, yeah, the differences that we have now are literally skin deep. That's it. We're supposed to be, not that we're supposed to have equity over the world and just do like those in Jamestown where you had half the people not working and half the people killing themselves working, and finally dude shows up and is like, all right, you don't work, you don't eat. How's that sound? Great. Let's just not eat each other here. But it's showing inside there that we are two sides of the same coin in just about every single aspect of our lives, whether you're male or female, or you're of this nationality, that nationality. Um, and we're designed to be coexisting creatures. We weren't meant to be alone. We weren't meant to just be lumped in these categories to then be what? Vetted by every single person for any thought we have, for any action we want to undergo, for anything we may purchase or place we want to go and enjoy, or theme park we want to visit, or movie we want to ingest, or book we want to read. Why does that now suddenly have to be the topic of discussion where we're trying to break people down into these singular little microcosmic aspects of what it is to be human and then label them? Oh, well, you like this thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, that thing, and that thing. And it's all connected to this weird little subculture-esque tree here. And so that now means that you're this. You're clearly a racist, you're a bigot, a misogynist, and a homophobe, and a xenophobe, and you're probably closeted gay too. It's like, no, no, no. Can't we just can't we just
Literal
actively,
Nazi.
yeah,
Literal Nazi.
can't we just actually work that model that's provided for us, which is, hey, look, we come from different places. Culturally, we may not mesh, but we are all unified in this one collective body. And as such, we all have different roles. Doesn't mean that one of us is more important than the other, because even Paul says of the body, he says, look, those that are essentially not as appealing are given a higher position of value. Those that are more appealing are brought a little bit lower so that the body can't say, look, I already have one hand. I don't need any foot. The eye can't say to the foot, I have no need of you. No, we're all made to work collectively for this actual good.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like they're trying to resegregate us. Segregation was wrong, right? Segregation was wrong.
Yeah.
This is something that we have had to deal with the consequences and the fallout of it. But it feels like it felt like to me growing up, and maybe it's because I was a kid at the time, maybe it's not, but I felt like in the 90s, we were well on our way
Oh, man.
as kids, from getting past slavery, racism, segregation, those things. We knew it was in the past. We knew it was bad, but we also knew that we had classmates of different of different colors and different cultures and everything,
Mhm.
and you could still hang out with them.
Yeah.
Even going into it to the mid 2000s, it felt like that because when I went overseas, my roommates, there were 6 of us sharing the room, and 4 of the 6 were black from different areas. One was Haitian, one was from a couple were from, you know, some of the more country cities. One was from up north, and it was amazing. To me, it was amazing because it was the bit closest exposure I had had to black culture, and what I felt was that there were so many similarities between what black people and white people from their own internal perspective and the way they viewed the world in many ways, um that it was like, okay, I guess it makes it easy for us to not get along because you look at 2 people who are very similar and sometimes they have difficulties getting along. Like
Mhm.
they can be very close and very good friends, but if the frictions turn a little, if there's a little bit of friction, it can turn that. And I feel like there's always a political angle that's causing that friction that keeps um, black people and white people at odds. And maybe it's a little bit of both sides. Maybe it's some from the right, maybe it's some from the left, but it's so loud from the left. It's so
It
absolutely
is.
loud from the left that it's like it's impossible, or it feels, I take that back. It feels impossible at times to tune it out, but you can. You can. And when
Mhm.
you stop and you ignore that crap and you ignore all the other stuff, you can see a lot of friendships form. And that's just me from my
Mhm.
perspective as a white guy talking about my perspective with black people as opposed to, somebody who is Hispanic and their
Mhm.
interactions, or a black person and their interactions with other races, and how that all fits out. But this was me being exposed deeply into another culture, and finding, a lot of people who were like-minded and shared and shared a lot of similar interests
Mhm.
and perspectives. And I thought that was very cool. But then, and that was 2006, 2007. Then what happens as soon as I get home? 2008 election. And then it seems like 2008, was just the linchpin for all this disparity. And it just got where I felt like 2007 for me as a 23, 24-year-old coming out of there and being like, this is cool. This is cool. We that I've experienced this and I feel
Mhm.
closer to the point where, at least, like, I know one of those friends who probably the guy I was closest to in many respects, um, won't talk to just ghosted me because I thought Trump was a pretty good candidate.
Isn't
Um,
that it's man,
and I
that
haven't seen him or talked to him since. And we
that's
were
the
pretty close
crux of it.
beforehand.
That's the crux of it. It's the willingness that people have, whether consciously or subconsciously, to cut someone completely out of their life simply for a difference of opinion. Because since they've done all this labeling and, oh, if you think this way, you clearly are this. Or if you voted for so and so, you're clearly this, 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 and this. It has made it so they will lump each other and themselves willfully into these categories. And they'll do so with glee because it's like, what's more scary than the monster you know? Well, it's the monster you don't know. So if you at least know what that monster is, oh, cool. Now you can attack it. And now you can make sure that it's no longer within your realm of physical action and it can be removed from your life there. Because it's almost like when you approach somebody who is afraid of the idea of owning a gun. Okay, well, what makes that fear go away? Familiarity, understanding, being around them, handling one, shooting one, to realize, oh, wow, if I treat this with the care and the respect that it's owed, I don't have to be afraid of it anymore. This can be used as a tool instead of this killing thing. But people have been made for the last, I'd say, 15 years or coming up on 15 years. And the turning point really was when Obama was elected. Up to that point, we were able to go on without having to face it. Oh, sure, you would crack jokes stereotypically, like as we all do, like stereotypes, especially caricatures, when done with accents and impressions, those were the stock and trade of comedians. Now somebody tries to pretend to be an Indian guy or a black guy, and they immediately labeled as racist. It used to be where you could poke fun at yourself and everybody else, and we all were like, "Oh yeah, we do kind of do that sometimes. Oh yeah, we do sound like that." But now
Bill
people,
Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle together on the Chappelle Show was a great example of. I felt like the arc was going like that. I felt like that's where that was going, and that was. I felt like it was a great example because you've got the fairest skinned ginger, like
mm-hmm,
in maybe in the
just
comedic
sports
scene,
loving guy.
and Dave Chappelle, who was like the next great black comedian, and
Yep.
they were on the show, and it was Dave's show, but it was so funny and everything. But you'd see these bits where he'd come in, and Dave did such a good job presenting that as well. And he's got his opinions that I disagree with, and he has
Mhm.
a different perspective on social justice than I do. But who cares? But I didn't care, and I still don't care when I watch
Yeah,
him do his stand up. I still don't care when he talks because, like, I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to agree with what Bill Burr says,
yeah.
but they make me laugh, right?
Mhm. And it
And they
was
work.
designed to be that way. It was like what unified people back in the day? Well, you go back to when we actually had our heavily Soviet Russia. What they provide their people? Bread and circus. Like, hey, here's something to laugh at. You can guys can unify under the fact that not only are you poor, but hey, you all get to eat and enjoy some entertainment for a while now. But now people are being force fed every single day. Hey, look at your differences. Look at them, recognize them, and make them the most important parts about you. You even go into old Pedro, into Peter, seeing that sheet from heaven come on down. 3 times it happens to him in a trance. And what's he told? Peter, kill and eat. And he sees all these unclean things. And the entire thing was meant as God to show him a metaphor for, hey, look, what I've determined is clean now is not unclean. This is an association thing. This is you are supposed to accept anybody into the fold that wants to know the reason for the hope that is in you. And I think that that same thing, that wisdom translates to our political world. It translates to this secular world, especially, and the impetus is on us as Christians, because going back to it, we are supposed to be the most mentally sound creatures that walk this planet, bar none. We are
Yeah.
supposed to be like God's elect, the ones called by his name, those who make up the church. We are supposed to be that. We are supposed to be the pillars that everybody else can lean on and put faith in, and maybe not faith in so much as they can trust that they will at least be fed through them spiritually, because we're all still men, we're all still fallible. But we don't have to continue to point out to each other all the differences. It'd be way more effective to point out all the areas in which we're similar,
Yeah.
and all the areas in which we're more alike than we ever thought we were. Like, how funny, like, again, to go back to the comedians, the thing that makes them funny and the thing that really gets people laughing is when they're talking about real life situations that take place, and real life things that we've all thought about or we've all done. Weird, quirky things that take place at family dinners around Thanksgiving or Christmas. And we also then go, oh, yeah, yeah, I know exactly how that was, or I know exactly what that's like. And we realize, oh, shoot, I'm laughing next to all these other people who have different skin colors than me. They're not of the same sex that I am. They come from different places. We're so much more alike than we realize. And
Oh, yeah.
man, like, the I say all that to say the only way that healing actually comes culturally and racially is if we as Christians, we as God-fearing people actually live it out in our own lives, because we can be very exclusatory too, especially with all the different sects of Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we can be very, very much, oh, are you pre-trib? Are you post-trib? Are you pre-wrath? Are you amillennial? Are you Baptist,
Dispensationalist?
Lutheran? Yeah, like we can be very much the same thing. And too much of, and which is, where your YouTube series that I was a part of there for so long was essentially woke preachers posting their L's online. The the hard pill to swallow with all that is even the church has been taken for a ride in the idea of letting the political divide and the political machinations of our nation be what drives their message from the pulpit. And we're all supposed to preach the gospel. And if you go to the very simple definition of the gospel as defined by Paul in the very first couple of verses of Romans, the gospel is God sent his son in human flesh here. He died for us, was resurrected on the third day for the redemption of all mankind. That's literally it. That's the gospel right there. And we put
Yeah.
everything in front of that to where that gets tucked way in the back and becomes secondary to all the other political mess that we
And
feel is way more important.
that's not new. It's not new in the church history. It's not new in biblical history, because I mean, look, and that's what we're doing our Bible read through on this channel. We're in the middle of Israel right now in the Old Testament, right? Saul just got anointed, but what have we gotten through the last few books? Israel screwing up, Israel becoming corrupted,
Yep.
having to come back, refocus, recenter, worship God, and get back to where they're supposed to be. And then they're okay for for a generation, maybe two, and then it all falls apart again. And that's where we're at. But there's no humility, because there's no real understanding of God coming through and
Humility is
humbling us,
so
because we're
key.
not recognizing it for what it is. You know, and the Catholics won't like it, but Martin Luther doing what he did,
95 Thesis.
to me, and I think to most people, if he doesn't do what he does, then the Vatican doesn't react to fix some of the problems that they had going on, and some of
Hmm.
the things that happened. That should have been a very humiliating part, and they do feel it, at, view it now as a humiliating part. But look at where we're all. I mean, look at where both sides are at. The Catholics, they have a very questionable pope, and the Lutherans have a group that identifying as Lutherans that are way on the left. We are all susceptible to Satan and what he does. And
Absolutely.
what does Satan do? He puts us against each other. He does
Yep.
these things that keep that animosity up. And what is a great way to do it? It's kind of like what you said. Remove familiarity, right? Remove familiarity. So we opposite people. We shouldn't hang out with so and so because they're not very trustworthy,
Yep.
or you shouldn't hang out with X group because you know they they are more privileged than you. And what you get is a deepening animosity, because you don't, where 20, 30 years ago, the races were much more familiar with each other, to right now that we're
Hmm.
almost alien,
It's
and we're treated that
strife.
way. And it's weird because we're in an era where there is, where interracial marriage used to be very taboo.
Yeah, right?
It's not
Yep.
happen. It really isn't anymore. But even in the midst of that stuff going on, it feels like the lines are harder and more divided, and we're
It's
more
that
divided than ever.
strife.
And that's
But
not how we. And look, that's going to happen politically, because politics is a naturally human
yes.
um uh thing. We just went through the point in Samuel. You already have a king. You don't need a king. You already have a king. I'm your king. No, no, no. We want a people king to do all the things that you were doing, only not as good. And now well, they're about to find out how corrupt it gets. But
Yep.
that's not how we should take it from our Christian perspective, which should be, we need to be use the Bible and Scripture and God's words as our source of hope, our source of salvation, and also our guidebook.
Yep. Your
For
marching orders.
what our expectations are. And we need to gather as many people around. And maybe we don't agree politically on some aspects. Maybe we don't agree on economics, or something like that. But at least we agree on the Savior and all these core principles. But now it feels like on the left side, all those core principles are gone. Like there
Oh,
is only room for atheism and the state.
yep. Is only room for the church of self.
Yes.
And I mentioned strife earlier. The good book tells us that where strife exists, there is every evil thing. Every evil thing. Just to drum that up, just to drum up some strife inside an environment. Because us as people, we are so quick to let our minds run on and on and on with a rumor or one foul word about somebody. And before you know it, we've already decided inside our mind that that person is dead to us, or this clutch of people are dead to us. And suddenly that gets poured into our kids, it gets poured into our neighbors, it gets poured into anybody who will hear us complain for a minute or two. Um, I finished reading a book not terribly long ago, and I was a bit hesitant to read it because my mom had recommended it to me. And she's still she's got one foot in the Assemblies of God, Word of Faith movement, and one foot on the Word of God proper. But she recommended it to me. It's called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. And quick little synopsis: it's a female writer. I forgot her name, but it opens up with her talking about her life being shattered, and it came at the finding out about her husband's infidelity, and then a subsequent separation and then divorce. On top of that, she ends up um, getting a cancer, and she's very, very sick for a time there. And I think thankfully the cancer is in remission, or it's completely gone now by the end of the book. But it's her having to deal with her life falling apart all at once. And it's not supposed to be this way. I had this. I had planned out this. We had this set. Suddenly now it's all gone. And one of the things that she talked about inside there was reconnecting closer still to God. And she had been a God-fearing, God-following woman, but it was sort of how I'm having this little extra growth process here in New York now, where I'm able to tune in even more than I was before. And in growing close to her creator, one of the things that she talked about was how we can't live the duality that is saying one thing and then being another completely. Um, in a world that doesn't read its Bible, but it does read its Christians, we have to be that walking tome to them. We have to be that representation of Jesus for them. And she said, how can I do that if I'm not shunning sin at every point in my life? And willfully, even though we will stumble and we will fall, doing as Noah did, and doing as Job did, and doing as David did, who were seen as being blameless. They weren't sinless, but they were blameless, being that they recognized immediately when they stepped out of bounds, and they made every stride they had to do to put things right and make them right. But she says, how can we as God's elect, as his chosen people, as his people called by his name, espouse one thing but behave differently? She says you have to actively double your efforts to root out that darkness that is inside you. When you catch yourself doing certain things or being certain ways or speaking certain ways, make a note of it and do as the word says, to repent, which doesn't mean to abstain from sin. What it means is to think, to rethink, and in lieu of new information, do differently or do correctly. Because in so doing, and it gives us a look at ourselves, but it also gives us a look at ourselves through somebody else's eyes, through this believing world that wants desperately to believe, but what can't find believable at all is how us as Christians can confess God with our mouth, walk out the door, and deny him with our lifestyle. And
Get some DC talk in there.
yeah, so much of what we say is where, like, because let's face it, the words right now with the advent of social media, that's where the battlefield is being had on I'd say the front lines. The actions right now seem to be secondary to all the words that people are saying, even though it's quite the reverse in reality. Our actions are what are actually carrying out and making our world beautiful, where the words are very often super empty. But there's still a necessary step for us as Christians to engage in that culture war. As frustrating as it is, and as maddening as it is to navigate, there are certain things that we are to speak to. And there are also certain things that, hey, man, that's it's like, unless you're trying to bring the church into it, I get to steer clear of that conversation there because it doesn't have any bearing. Um, Now, like the topic of sex, the topic of abortion, those are areas where pushback is definitely warranted and called for, because sex was God's construct first. And the abolition of abortion and the condemning of it was his first gig. The idea of union being between a man and a woman, the idea of actual phileo love, that brotherly love, the idea of eros love, that passionate love, the idea of the agape love, that boundless love. Those were all God's first. And we as Christians, we do have to speak to that. Now, the judgment that we have concerning those things has to be on principle when it's relating to a world that doesn't follow God. Now, the judgment that can actually be where you're calling into question a person's character and their own inner workings, that is reserved for within the church, as you very well know, where we're called to show a brother the error of his ways and help him to right his step. And then we go through a 4-step process. If it's heated, awesome, we gained our brother. If not, hey, you got to go, because what's good for your goose is not good for our gander over here. And to that end, online right now, where there is such a war of words going on, you can still grapple and engage in that culture war and fight, but you can do so with tact. You can do so without sinning, and you can do so without being malicious. You can level fabulous rebukes. You can give a good discipline or a good punishing where it's needed and when it's needed. But you have to actively shun that sin of wanting to take it to the next step and pour the malice and pour the intent to cause pain into it. And that's where I think a lot of like what I want to do, and I think what you want to do, and what a lot of people who are having conversations like this want to do, I think that's the point where a lot of us are sort of missing the mark. Because I can get fired up just as easily as the next guy, and I can take my warranted rebuke and my warranted correction and turn that into something savage and something malicious, where it's just for my own twisted pleasure to watch somebody squirm or cry or wince or barf. Um, I think if we can do a better job at policing ourselves and being that meek person, the measured strength, the keeping your sword sheathed until it's absolutely necessary to, with your physical works, not your words anymore, but your physical works, go and cut joint and marrow, bone and sinew, flesh and soul apart. If we can keep it under wraps until that point, and be those who are the well-spoken ones, be those who are able to lead by that sin-shunning example. If we can do that, man, you can win entire cultures without even having to mention to them that you're a Christian, because they'll be able to look at you and know you're cut from something bigger.
Well, that was and that us all that, except for the part where not being not you don't have to tell them that they're Christian, is very much the early success of Christianity.
Yes, absolutely.
Was not done through conquest or anything. Christianity spread like a wildfire after the ascension of Christ, and you know, I think that we have to nothing but to attest this to the early Christians and early church fathers and stuff like that for what they did, how they went about spreading the gospel in the way that created, well, a lot of what we understand is the beginnings of Western civilization.
Yeah,
Off of
very
that.
much so.
So, all right, well, we're getting close to 2 hours. So we're gonna wrap this up. It's been a long week for me, so I'm a little tired, but I'm gonna read
Same.
I'm gonna read these chats that came in. Let me go up a bit.
This
Fig
was
came into the
super needed, by the way. Oh my gosh.
It's been, look, I went, I think when we were doing it, I had about 30 so subscribers or something like that, maybe 20 something. And now I'm at 400, which doesn't mean anything because I don't have 400 viewers. I think the views I got yesterday was one of the highest because I put Nick's name in my in the title. I've got 84 views on it right now. I mean, I don't get a whole lot of views, but what we have here now is a community. Like I say, very much like a small group, very much like your Sunday school, coming in here and people giving perspectives, and I think it's great. So there we go. Nernath, they turned women into men and now want to show that men can be better women than women, because that makes all the sense. Illusion Gaming, hello from 3375. Illusion, if you are still here, welcome. Glad to have you here. Blaine's escape corner. The grandmother who nursed two babies, could shoot a gopher in the garden and bake bread with her feet all at the same time, is gone now. In some ways, very true. The little bit I've got about that is my wife's grandmother, who I met once and did not spend much time. No, I don't think I met her at all. I take that back. I never met that grandmother. She was from very poor, very, very rural Mobile, Alabama,
Hmm.
raised my mother-in-law and 5 other kids, I think. She was deaf, and so was her husband,
Wow.
uh, my wife's grandfather, um, who left the scene for many years. I think he was not at home for many years and then came back. I don't know the whole story. Um, but so she raised a lot of those kids a lot on her own, and towards the end of her life, she spent her time uh, with my wife and her mom, and she
Wow.
had a slingshot, and she could go out there and pick off squirrels with the slingshot. It was crazy. They're there, and and apparently she loved professional wrestling. So
Wow.
it's that kind of cool stuff. So yeah, they're gone. There's still some around there. You just got to look, but it's not as often, and those women aren't as prevalent as they used to be. Nagging as they're sued. Here's the one that Nernaeth said that really made me chuckle. Ask your doctor about a Zara Connecto today. When you said it, it sounded like it does sounds like a medication.
Doesn't it?
He said it. He said it. He said the thing. I don't know what he's talking about. The thing. Porcupine. This is something I relate to. In the past few years, my wife and I have taken on our biblical roles in our household. Our marriage has gotten so much more rewarding, and faith and trust in God has grown exponentially. Yes, I'm in the middle of that as well, Porcupine, and this is a more recent turn as my wife has become has grown in her Christianity, which has been a beautiful thing for me to watch. That has also happened with us as well.
That's awesome.
Blaine is quoting, "How do hedgehogs reproduce?
Carefully.
Carefully." Fig comes into the chat. He said, "Eric, where's that content?" He's asking about your channel.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Blaine said, "Men take risks, women keep them alive. Doesn't matter if I'm
Very
putting
much so.
$1 into 401k. She's always questioned as though it's being the best option for that cash." Blaine said, "Careful, I heard that some chick on Twitch got a ban." Well, look, everybody's getting banned these days. Dorio and Cyberpunk Edgerunners got the same treatment. We literally only see her kissing her boyfriend, and everyone on Twitter shouted, "Gay!" The modern identity movement tells you that you need to change who you are if you are not accepted for who you are, or if you are the least bit insecure, or if you're the least bit unhappy with who you are, they want you to change into a victim almost. And that's not how that's supposed to be. You're supposed to be that's a challenge that you're supposed to have an inner struggle and overcome that.
Yep.
And find out,
Surmount it.
either fix the shortcoming or turn it into a strength, or just understand it and lean on your other strengths.
Absolutely.
So, and then Renee said about Dorio, she is self-hating and deeply closeted, because that's how they always attack those folks. Blaine said the diverse writing room at Crunchyroll was a group that would make Captain Ahab drool, which I assume has a reference to white whales.
Mm-hmm.
Took Nernath a minute to take that. Hold on.
It's such a goodie there too. Like
like the furry version of the monster is always more scary. So a furry white whale would be really scary.
Ambergris.
So, and then Blaine left to go see his go start his own stream. So guys, after this, because I am the better YouTuber, you can go over and watch his show, this will be ending off soon. And then K-Man 949, welcome back, Eric. I have not seen K-Man in the chat before, so maybe he's coming over because he saw you pop up. So, but K-Man, stick around. Catch some of these other streams. We're going to be more serious, folks. We're going to be a little bit more serious. Normally Fridays our chill stream, but we've had a couple of chill streams this week because it's just been very busy for me. A lot of traveling, and catching up where I can. So we'll get back into the Bible Friday and get us into the weekend with some momentum for Monday. So Off to K-Man, Blaine, Nico, Nernaeth. Let's see, who else? Fig, always good to see you. Porcupine, Gaming Illusion, Tony Guy, friend of yours. Neo
Mhm.
Rice, John Smoth, Porcupine, if I haven't already said you. Dresden. Uh, Thank you all for tuning in and being part of the chat. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your ears. Anybody else out there who's listening right now, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys. Um, whatever you are able to get out from me, whatever you're getting from Eric that you find compelling enough to tune in for, um, I'm glad you're getting it. I'm glad you're getting it. I hope it helps you in some way. It helps me. I know it helps me, and I know Eric enjoys these as well. So, so tomorrow, more again, we're flexible on Fridays because we got Friday night movie night with the family. It's got a new comment pop up. Nope, nope. Oh, K-Man says been around, just lurk. Lurking's fine. You're welcome in the chat, but if you want to lurk, that's great.
Lurking's free.
But it's family movie nights on Friday, so we're a little bit more flexible on the start time, but I fully intend on having that. So, Eric, anything you want to say to close out?
Yeah, actually. Sort of how I mentioned, I guess, kind of either top or middle of this, I will be having some new content here. Not this coming week, but well, I shouldn't say the following one. It'll be 3 weeks from now. I'm going to be starting to actually do some live streaming as well. I want to tackle topics that have bridged the gap between the church and our everyday world, where those seams are sort of coming together. Those are the topics that I'm really going to be focusing in on. And it's probably going to be starting at around 10 p.m. Eastern, so 9 p.m. Central, and probably going for maybe 2.5 hours. But that'll be coming up. I'm going to start it just once a week to begin with. See how my body reacts given my workload that I have.
Long streams, when you get done with them, you're like,
yeah, they are definitely draining. But I'm finishing up a few little independent studies that I'm doing as well, into my good book here. And so there'll be more polished content in that regard as well. But I really want to engage with my own community and bounce questions, bounce ideas off you guys inside the chat, and hear what you have to say. Because I feel like there's a world of answers that we have at our disposal. We just need to happen upon them, and we need to be the people that the ideas have. To quote Jordan Peterson in sort of a roundabout way there. Beyond that, um, I want to encourage everybody to take their prayer life seriously, because we are given a very, very firm promise in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy. God says, "Look, if my people call by my name, humble themselves and pray, and turn from their wickedness and seek my face, I will hear their prayers, I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land." And that's a promise. So take your prayer life seriously. Even if it's just for a few minutes in the morning or a few minutes at night before you go to bed, take it seriously and know that your prayers are being heard, because they are effective and they can change the world around you in amazing ways in very short order, if you're willing to put forth that effort in communing with your creator. So
yeah.
take it
It's like
seriously.
calling your parents, right? You need to make sure
Yeah,
you do it.
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Call your dad. Talk to God. Talk to him, because he wants you. And it's an easy thing to pick on when we say Christianity is a relationship with God. It's a very Protestant, very more evangelical leaning on things when we say it's a relationship. But at the same time, he is the Father. But he chose for you to be out here,
Oh,
right?
sorry. Make that Second Chronicles.
You are one of his creations, right? That's a deliberate act, and you're made in his image. Of course, he wants to hear from you. Of course, he wants you to to lay your worries and burdens on him, and also your praise and respect as well. Let's not forget who he is and what he represents. You might be interested and you might be surprised by the answers you get back. So good part on that, Eric. So with no further ado, everybody have a very good evening, and we'll be back at this tomorrow night with some scripture that we're going to cover. Um, in the meantime, everybody have a very good night, and
Yes.
God bless.